Well, my first question for you tonight is where will Bowen Byram be playing in 2025, 2026?
I think my answer earlier this offseason definitely would have been anywhere but Buffalo. Now I think there's like a small chance he could come back to Buffalo. Like I have no inside info on this, but just looking at their depth chart right now, if they let Byram go and if they trade him and they don't get a defenseman coming back, like you're looking at one of Zach Jones or Jacob Bryson in the everyday lineup with two injuries to the Sabres defense group. Like you're looking at like Ryan Johnson, Jacob Bryson, and Zach Jones as half of that Sabres defense group. So that thought is pretty scary. And, I don't know if the Sabres have like another, it's just kind of like a two dimes for a quarter type trade like they did with Paterka. Like I don't know if there's another one out there for them to do that with Byram. So, I do think the Sabres, I think it's creeping up. I do think there's a chance he could stay as a Sabre. Like the closer this gets to his arbitration award, I think the more likely it is. Now he could still be traded after the arbitration award, but it's also likely he stays a Sabre if they reach that point because that means a trade has not happened yet. And I guess we'll find out. I really did think that he would be going to St. Louis for Jake Neighbors. I think that trade just made too much sense for both sides because they just have so many kind of youngerish wingers. I mean, I know they traded Zach Bolduc, but I just think that trade, if St. Louis is really into them, giving a guy like Jake Neighbors for them really made sense. But, that didn't happen. We're sitting here July 10th. Byram's still a Sabre. So, I think he could end up a Sabre next season.
Not only do I think he could, if I was the Sabres, I almost would because of what you said. If they aren't bringing a defenseman back, you're forcing someone into the top four. And you're already kind of doing that with Michael Kesselring. Everyone expects, and I personally do expect him to be a top four defenseman as well. But what happens if it doesn't work out? What happens if Owen Power, because this is something that slipped my mind, and obviously it's come back in quite a way. Owen Power took a pretty nasty injury at the end of last season. What happens if it takes him a little bit to get going as well? Like things could drop off quite a bit. You trade Byram, you don't get a defenseman back. You're already forcing someone into the top four. Power struggles a little bit, or maybe Kesselring struggles a little bit. Who knows? An errant shot off the foot, and a guy's out for a month. That could get really thin on the back end there. So it's a double-edged sword. Do you want to be paying, few defensemen a whole bunch of money, or do you move them? I'm not exactly sure, but I personally think I'm more on the you should keep them at least for the start of the season just to see how things are shaking out and to have the back end, the defense that the team's been looking for years with some actual stability and hopefully some competition back there. So we'll see what happens with Byram. Do you have any thoughts of did you like what the Sabres did in the situation of taking him to arbitration?
Yeah, I think I mean, there is actually a threat of an offer sheet. I guess it definitely makes sense. I'm still a little skeptical that a team actually would have offer sheeted Byram, especially like some of the teams that are kind of in discussion of being into Byram, like teams like Calgary, teams like St. Louis, because if they do an offer sheet, that first round pick could easily turn into Gavin McKenna. Like there's no protections on first round picks when you give them up in an offer sheet, and those are two fringe playoff teams, and Byram's not exactly a guy that could push a fringe team into a playoff spot, as we've seen as Sabres fans. So I don't know how real that offer sheet threat was, but I mean, I guess if it was real, it's worth it. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I kind of would have liked if that offer sheet rumor was true, because to be able to get a first from a middle of the pack team, like a 15th, 16th overall pick for Byram, I think that would be more than what he's worth. And then, if the rumors were true that teams are offering like 9-10 million, getting two firsts for a guy like Byram would be absolutely insane. Like that would be an incredible trade for the Sabres. Like even if they're trying to win now, you just take the two first and figure everything else out. So yeah, I do think at the end of the day, though, I do think it was worth taking arbitration, and it gives the Sabres a better opportunity to have him come back, because at least it kind of sets up a negotiation process instead of trying to bring him to the table and figure something out.
All right. Well, there you have it. Bowen Byram, as of right now, is still a Sabre. We will see what happens in the future with him and if he starts the season or even ends the season as a Buffalo Sabre.